Have you ever watched a storm rage while one tree stands completely still? That's what real power looks like in an argument. Not the shouting, not the chaos. Just stillness. Just presence. See, the secret to winning any argument isn't in talking more, it's in saying less. It's not about proving a point. It's about knowing when to stop trying. The louder they get, the quieter you become. And that silence, that's where your strength is. Think of it like this. Emotions are like gasoline. Add words, and you're tossing in a match. But when you stay calm, you starve the flame. No fuel, no fire. Or imagine a wolf being barked at by a smaller dog. Does the wolf bark back? Number. Because it knows its power doesn't come from noise, it comes from control. That's what this is really about. Control, discipline, strategy. While they're busy spinning in emotional circles, repeating themselves, chasing validation, you stay anchored. Because once you stop over-explaining, once you stop defending yourself, you become untouchable. Their confidence begins to crack, their words lose weight, and you've already won. Without shouting, without forcing, without lifting a finger. So how do you do it? How do you make someone unravel? By doing almost nothing. Stay with me till the end, because once you learn this, you'll never argue the same way again. Let's begin. Number 1, keep your cool while they boil over. When emotions boil, the first one to lose their temper loses the argument. You see, most people think arguments are about facts, points, evidence, or shouting the loudest. But in reality, the person who stays calm is the one holding the knife in a gunfight, silent, sharp, and dangerous. When someone argues with emotions instead of logic, they've already slipped. Their feelings blur their thinking, and in that moment, they become their own worst enemy. That's your edge. Not louder words, but stronger composure. Think of it like this. A raging river might seem powerful, but it's the still water that runs deep. And the one who stays calm during chaos isn't passive. They're in control. They're observing, waiting, watching the other person tie themselves in emotional knots. As Epictetus once said, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. So don't give them that power. They'll try to bait you. They'll twist your words, raise their voice, accuse, even mock you. But your job is simple. Don't take the bait. You might be thinking, but won't I look weak if I don't defend myself? Number. You'll look composed. And trust me, people respect the one who keeps their head while everyone else is losing theirs. Let me tell you about James. Office meeting. Heated argument. His colleague was flailing, shouting, interrupting, trying to dominate. James, silent, still, unmoved. When it was his turn to speak, he didn't defend. He clarified. Not with emotion, but with clarity. And guess who the room listened to? Not the loud one, the still one. Here's the truth. Anger is loud, but strength is quiet. So next time someone starts arguing and you feel your heart race, your fists clench, your voice rise, pause, breathe, say nothing. Let them perform for the room. Let them drown in their own noise. And when the moment is right, speak. Calm, clear, unshaken. That's when they realize they've already lost. Because while they were trying to prove a point, you were proving character. And people don't follow the loudest person in the room. They follow the one who doesn't flinch when the storm hits. That's real power. So let them boil over. You stay still, stay silent, stay dangerous. Number 2, throw the ball back in their court. In a battle of words, the one who keeps asking the right questions never has to raise their voice. See, most people, when challenged, go straight into defense mode. They scramble to explain themselves, justify, prove they're right. But the moment you start defending, you're no longer leading the conversation, you're chasing it. Here's the hard truth. When you defend, you give the other person power. But when you ask questions, sharp, calm, precise, you make them explain, you make them work. And 9 times out of 10, their own logic folds in on itself. Imagine a boxer who doesn't swing wildly, but simply lets the opponent exhaust themselves, dodging, weaving, then one clean hit. That's what questions do. They don't attack, they expose. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." And nothing shows calm strength more than the ability to step back and say, "Help me understand. Why do you believe that?" Let me answer what you might be wondering. But won't I seem passive if I don't defend myself? Not at all. You'll seem composed, in control, because asking the right question is not retreat, it's strategic pressure. Daniel, a guy I know, was once criticized at work. His colleague said his idea was unrealistic. Most people would have fired back defensively, but Daniel just looked up and asked, "What specifically makes you think that?" The colleague stumbled, gave a weak answer. Daniel followed up with, "And how is that different from what we've done before, with success?" Silence. Game over. No shouting, no argument. Just clean, surgical logic. Here's what happens. When you ask, you shift the spotlight. You make them examine their own logic. You put the burden of proof where it belongs, on them. And when their reasoning is hollow, it shows. Let them talk. Let them build their own house of cards. You just pull one card with a question and watch it collapse. The person who asks the questions runs the conversation, not the one shouting, not the one defending, and not the one chasing approval. So next time they come at you with heat, don't fight the fire. Hand them the match and ask where the fuel is. Let their words undo them. You just stay sharp and silent. Number 3. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. Sometimes the loudest thing in the room is your silence. People often believe that to win an argument, they have to talk more, defend more, prove more, shout louder. But real power doesn't chase, it doesn't scramble, it waits. And sometimes it says absolutely nothing. Silence, when used with precision, is not passivity. It's a mirror. It reflects their own insecurities, flaws, and doubts back at them. Because when someone comes at you aggressively, they expect resistance. They expect fire. But when you give them stillness instead, it rattles them. Think of silence like standing in the middle of a storm without flinching. The wind howls, the rain falls, but you remain unmoved. That calm, that control, it shakes people more than any comeback ever could. Let silence be your goal, Epictetus said, except when speaking is more valuable. And that's the secret. Not every attack deserves your energy. Not every opinion is worth your breath. Let me guess, you're thinking, but won't I look weak if I stay silent? Number. You'll look unshakable. You'll look like you've already seen through the chaos and decided it wasn't worth your response. Let me tell you about Alex. Heated meeting. His colleague came in swinging, loud, relentless, determined to prove Alex wrong. But Alex didn't flinch. He didn't argue, didn't interrupt. He just listened, in silence. No smirking, no rolling of the eyes, just stillness. And then something happened. The colleague started to repeat himself, started to doubt himself, filling in the silence like he was trying to convince himself more than anyone else. By the time Alex finally spoke, the entire room had already made up their mind. He didn't need to prove anything. The silence had already done it for him. Silence is tension. It makes them uncomfortable, makes them question their own certainty. Because when you don't react, they start wondering, did I go too far? Did I miss something? Why aren't they fighting back? And that doubt, that's where they start to unravel. So next time they come at you with force, don't meet them there. Just pause, hold eye contact, say nothing. Let the weight of your silence press down on them like gravity. Let them break their own argument while you remain still. Because the person who controls the silence controls the room. Number 4, give them a slice before you flip the whole pie. Sometimes the smartest way to win an argument is to stop fighting it. See, most people go into debates with a defend at all costs mindset. Every word, every claim, every opinion, they resist it like a threat. But when you argue with everything, you look rigid, emotional, even insecure. Real strength doesn't flinch at the truth. It uses it. Here's the twist. Agree with what's true, and then take control. That's simple. When someone expects you to fight, and instead you nod and say, "That's a fair point," they freeze for a second. You've just short-circuited their entire approach. They're not ready for agreement, and because of that, you disarm them. Their walls come down. Now they're listening. That's when you pivot. It's like judo. You don't block force with force. You use their momentum to shift the direction. Say, "You're absolutely right about this part, and that's exactly why I believe this could work even better." Now, you've made it feel like a shared idea. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself," meaning you don't need to crush every point to win. You just need the discipline to control the flow, even if it means momentarily agreeing with someone who disagrees with you. Let me tell you about Sarah. In a workplace debate, her colleague pushed for a faster, more efficient process. Sarah didn't agree, not fully. But instead of rejecting the idea outright, she said, "I completely agree that we need to improve efficiency." That one sentence made her co-worker feel respected. Then she added, "But if we rush it, we might lose quality. What if we combine both ideas?" Boom. No ego, no resistance, just smart redirection. And by the end, her co-worker was nodding in full agreement. You might wonder, won't I look like I'm giving in? No, not if you steer the ship right after. Agreeing isn't surrender. It's strategy. It's bait for better dialogue. In truth, people don't want to fight. They want to feel heard. So give them that, then lead them where they didn't expect to go. Because when you agree with the truth, you don't lose ground. You build a bridge, and then walk across it first. Number 5, give them the rope, then watch them tie the knot. One of the most brilliant ways to win an argument is to step back and let them do the damage themselves. Most people feel this urge to jump in, to fact-check, to counter, to defend every little point. But here's what the wise already know. The more someone talks without real clarity, the more likely they are to slip, to stretch the truth, to contradict themselves. And the best part? You don't have to lift a finger, just listen. Because people who argue with emotion or without a solid foundation tend to overplay their hand. They start off sounding confident, but then they get carried away. They repeat themselves. They exaggerate. They try too hard to sound certain. And somewhere in that mess, they stumble, not because of you, but because their own logic was flawed from the start. As Zeno of Citium once said, better to trip with the feet than with the tongue. Words once spoken can't be taken back. And the careless ones, they leave trails of weakness. Imagine a hunter who doesn't chase, but waits. The prey walks right into the trap, because it was too impatient, too confident, too loud. You might ask, but shouldn't I correct them before they go too far? No, that's the trap. Letting them speak gives you insight. It gives you patterns. And when the time is right, you calmly and precisely highlight the contradiction they never saw coming. Let me give you a real-world example. A man I know, we'll call him Eric, had a friend who doubted his new business idea. His friend was full of opinions. The market's too small. You don't have a customer base. There's too much competition. But Eric didn't argue. He didn't defend. He just asked questions. Why do you think that? Can you explain? How would that apply in practice? The more his friend spoke, the sloppier his logic became. At one point, he said the market was too small, and minutes later claimed the competition was too high. Eric smiled and asked, "So, is the market too small, or is it too crowded?" Because it can't be both. That's it. No shouting, no defense, just quiet precision. And in that moment, his friend realized the flaw. The entire argument collapsed, not because Eric destroyed it, but because he let it collapse under its own weight. That's the power of patience. So the next time someone comes at you aggressively, just lean back. Say less. Let them talk themselves into the corner. You're not being passive. You're giving them the space to self-destruct. And when the contradiction shows up, you don't need to attack. Just ask a simple question that makes them see it for themselves. Because sometimes the strongest move is silence with intention. Let their own words build the wall. All you have to do is show them the door. Number 6, don't dance in their fire. Let it burn itself out. There's a trap in every emotional argument, and the bait is your reaction. See, most people don't enter debates looking for truth. They come armed with emotion, loaded with triggers, and itching for a fight. They don't want understanding. They want reaction. If they can get under your skin, make you flinch, make you raise your voice, they win. Not because they're right, but because you've stepped into their storm. But here's the secret. When you don't react, you rob them of their power. A person screaming at someone who stays calm eventually looks like a fool. A fire trying to burn something made of stone only exhausts itself. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. That's not just philosophy, that's psychological warfare. Because when someone lashes out and you respond with nothing but calm logic and detachment, you show them something they weren't ready for. Emotional discipline. Let me guess, you're thinking, but won't they think I'm weak if I don't fight back? Number. That's what they want you to think. Weakness is reacting to every poke. Strength is knowing you could explode, but choosing not to. Let me tell you about Kevin. He had a co-worker, the kind that lives to provoke. Loud, sarcastic, always throwing cheap shots in meetings, especially when disagreements came up. His goal? Make Kevin look unstable, drag him into the mud. But Kevin never took the bait. Not once. He stayed calm, clear, never raised his voice. He responded to attacks with logic and sometimes just a silent smile. And each time, his co-worker got more aggressive, more visibly frustrated. Eventually, the whole team saw it. The more the co-worker lashed out, the more unhinged he looked. The calmer Kevin stayed, the more respect he earned. He didn't win through argument, he won by not engaging in the circus. That's how you take back power, not by fighting louder, but by not fighting at all. Because when you stay detached, they start to unravel. When you don't respond to manipulation, they lose their grip. And when you stay composed, people notice not just the argument, but you. So next time someone tries to pull you into chaos, pause. Recognize it for what it is. Bait. Smile internally. Lower your voice when theirs rises. Stay logical when they get personal. Stay still when they throw fire. Let them burn out trying to light you up. Because in the end, emotional arguments are like storms, loud, wild, and temporary. But you can be the mountain that doesn't move. And that's how you win, without ever lifting a hand. In conclusion, the real power in any argument lies not in how loud you speak, but in how calmly you respond. Master silence, composure, and strategy. And you'll never need to argue to win. If this spoke to you, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this.